Over there on Saturday.
Yeah, so was mine.
Don't know what Tom sent her.
I sent
Just double checking with Martin to check if it's live. Just give me a second, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
The stream is now live, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome, councillors, to this live streamed meeting of the Growth Scrutiny Committee at Bolsover District Council. This is a public meeting being streamed live to YouTube and via the council's website. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn the meeting until the connection has been restored. This meeting will also be This meeting is also being recorded. Please note that there is an extra item at the end of the agenda, post-scrutiny monitoring report, review of income generation, which will include discussion of sensitive information. So before the item, I will move that we use exclusion of the public for legislation. The live stream will terminate when this item is discussed. The agenda will also include urgent items that have been agreed to accept and added. Can the facilitator confirm who is in remote attendance at this meeting?
Thank you, Chair. I will now go for a roll call of the officers and members present at the meeting at this time. The officers that are in the meeting are Amar Bashir, Improvement Officer, John Hendy, Tourism and Town Centre Officer, Joe Wilson, Scrutiny Elections Officer, Carl Apps, Joint Housing Strategy and Growth Manager, Chris Fridlington, Planning Manager, myself, Tom Scott, Governance Officer, Alison Bluff, Governance Officer, and Liz Robinson, Accountancy Assistant. I will now go through the members present at the meeting one by one, and I will ask, when I call each member's name, please, I would ask members to please state their name, title, the ward they represent, and to confirm for the live stream that they can see and hear the meeting. Thank you. First, Councillor David Dixon.
Yeah, Councillor David Dixon, Barbara Ward.
Can you confirm you can see and hear the meeting, Councillor Dixon?
I can confirm, yes, I can see and hear.
Thank you. Councillor Jen Wilson.
Councillor Jen Wilson, Chair of Growth Scrutiny, member of Bolsover District Council, Sharbrook Ward member, and as I say, I'm chairing this meeting. Thank you.
Can you see and hear the meeting, Chair?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Councillor Graham Parkin.
Graham Parkin, representing South Normanton. I can see and hear the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Derek Adams.
Derek Adams, Bolsover South Ward. I can see and I can hear the meeting. Thank you.
Councillor James Watson.
Yes, my name is James Watson. I represent Pinkston Ward and I can see and hear the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Roberts.
Yeah, I can see and hear, and it's Peter Roberts of Whitwell Ward.
Councillor Jim Clifton.
Jim Clifton, Elton with Cresswell, Zoom link, okay.
Councillor Liz Smith.
Yes, Councillor Liz Smith here, Old Hucknall Ward and Cabinet Member for Economic Development. And I can see and hear the meeting.
Councillor Tom Kirkham.
Councillor Tom Kirkham, Old Hucknall Ward. I can see and hear the meeting.
Councillor Tom Munro.
Tom Munro, Whitwell Ward. I can see and hear the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Mary Dooley.
Need to give me a confirm.
I think Councillor Dooley's only observing. Her microphone isn't turned on. Councillor Tricia Clough.
Councillor Tricia Clough, Deputy Chair of Growth Scrutiny Committee, representative of Alt Hucknall Ward. I can see and hear the meeting. Thank you.
I will now hand back to the chair to begin the agenda.
Thank you. I will now hand over to the facilitator to explain some of the procedures of the meeting. That's all right, Joanne?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, before we start the meeting, members are reminded of the meeting etiquette that has been circulated to them. All members should have their microphones turned off during the meeting unless you wish to speak and you have been called on. Members attending remotely, please leave your cameras on during the meeting. Also for remote members, to request to speak, please use the chat function within Zoom to type speak or raise your hand on camera. The chair will then call on you to speak during the discussion debate. When a vote is to be taken, this will be by a show of hands. For those attending remote, please ensure your hand is visible on camera. If any member is disconnected from the meeting, please try to rejoin as quickly as possible. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact one of the support officers of the meeting in my email to you. If you're about to speak, the meeting will wait a few moments for you to rejoin. Chair, I will now hand back to you.
Thank you for clarifying all that. I believe we're on item 1 now. Are there any apologies?
Yes,
I've had. Oh, sorry.
Yes, Chair. It's the Governance Officer speaking. Listen, we have had apologies from Councillor Chris Kane and Councillor Sandra Peake, who is the portfolio holder for housing.
Thank you for that, Alison. Item 2 is I would like to advise members of the committee that the following publication of the agenda, I have agreed to the addition of 2 urgent items in order to ensure that there is no delay to service delivery and an opportunity for scrutiny to shape policy development. A report on the empty property strategy 2021 to 2024 is first, and then we've got a report on the housing strategy 2021 to 2025. We will discuss these in detail towards the end of this meeting prior to the current item 9 committee work programme. These reports can be found on the website in a supplementary publication of this for this meeting and have been circulated to members prior to the meeting. Joanne, do you need to come in now, please?
This meeting is being recorded.
No, Chair, we're discussing the items later, so it's just to move on to item 3. We were just acknowledging that we'd agreed that it could be part of the agenda.
Right, thank you. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Have any persons got any declarations to declare? I take that there's no hands on my screen. Joanne, has anybody in your?
There's nobody, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. Tom, we'll confirm whether any members wish to make it. Oh, we've done that. Thank you, Tom. And there are no declarations of interest. Item 4, minutes. Within the agenda pack, we have 2 sets of minutes for approval, starting on page 5 of the agenda pack. If I can take the minutes of February the 26th first, I'd like to move these as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Could I have a second, please? Thank you.
1 second.
Yeah. All in favour? Thank you. Unanimous.
Chair, it's not unanimous. I wish to abstain, please, and have my abstention recorded for the minutes of February 2020, please.
Yeah, certainly. I'm sorry about that. It didn't come up on my screen, so I apologise for that. Joanne, did you get that? Or Alison, sorry, she'll be taking minutes. And Joanne, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, that's been recorded, Chair. You can move on.
Move on, thank you. And as I say, now if we could consider the minutes of the 10th of June, I'd like these as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Could I have a second, please? Thank you. That's Trish. All in favour?
That's everybody, Chair.
Thank you. If there are queries over the accuracy, then these can be raised and addressed as normal. Refer to Alison to note the amendments. Well, there are none, are there? Right, item 5, a list of key decisions. This can be found on pages 25 to 31 of the agenda pack. Could I ask the Scrutiny Officer to brief members on the report?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Members will be familiar with the list of key decisions. Just to note, on the initial table on page 28, there are a couple of items that have already been approved by exec at the June meeting. The third item is a report that has been circulated to you for consultation. You received that on Monday. This is a consultation report on welfare adaptations, contract extension. This is being delivered by delegated decision, as that was decided by executive in 2018 when the original contract was awarded. If you have any comments on that, you need to respond to Director Chris Fridlington, Assistant Director of Development, or to Mark Dunworth, and the details are in the paperwork that's been sent you. The remaining items will be considered at executive on the 27th of July. Also, members will note that there have been 3 additions to the list of key decisions. The Chair has approved 3 urgent decisions. Purchase of employment land at Shirebrook. This was due to a commercial opportunity that had arisen, and this was after the list of key decisions had been published. And in order to ensure that there's timely purchase of the land, we've had to move forward and do an urgency notice. There's the reimagining of Plesley Vale. This is to do some pre-planning work for potential development within the Plesley Vale site. Again, this came forward after the list of key decisions have been published, and due to the urgency of the decision, the Chair's agreed to the item being added to the July exec. And there is also purchase of Section 106 properties. Again, this is requiring a timely decision and cannot wait until the next executive meeting within September, and therefore has been agreed as an urgent item for the July meeting. I don't know if members have any other further questions or observations on the list of key decisions.
Does anybody wish to come in? Joanne, do we need to take a vote on this?
No,
I think Councillor James Watson, Chair.
Right. Yeah, sorry, I've not got James's up on my screen, but yeah, James, would you like to come in, please?
Okay, I'm a little confused here. Oh, sorry, first of all, Councillor James Watson, Peterson Ward. With respect to how the agenda was set out and the stuff that we received under urgent business, are we not now going to be allowed an opportunity to discuss that?
Yes, we're going to be discussing that slightly later in the agenda. Although we've brought them in as urgent items to ensure that there's no delay to the start of those strategies, the detail within the reports themselves is much the same as the other items within the agenda. So in order to just have a natural flow to the meeting, we're going to discuss those within the main body of the agenda with the other reports.
Okay, so, and that includes the 3 urgent decisions that have been notified to us.
The 3 urgent decisions, no, I'm making reference to those now, just to let you know that they've been added to the list of key decisions for the July meeting. Okay, and is there an opportunity to discuss them or not at this meeting? Yes, you can discuss those 3 decisions that I've just mentioned. The 2 reports that were circulated as part of the additional paperwork, they're being discussed later in the agenda. Right. Okay, so because I'm confused with the section 106 discussion, because I understand that that is being classed as exempt, and I don't understand why it is exempt. So that's why my general confusion is about whether we can discuss it now or not. Yes, it is an exempt. It is an exempt decision. I don't have a lot of detail other than to know it's subject to paragraph 3 of. Well, that's my point. Why is it subject to why is it? It's a section 106 agreement after all. This is my dilemma. So yeah. Chair, could you give any direction on this, Councillor Wilson?
Joanne's just said Chris Fridlington wants to speak, so I'll bring Chris in first.
Yeah, this has come about. I don't know if Carl's already on the call or not.
Sorry to interrupt, just to confirm, because it's an exempt item, we need to be mindful that we can't go into a lot of detail on this. You would potentially need to move into exempt.
Okay.
To go into any detail on the report, so just be mindful of the detail you're giving.
Yeah, it's Chris Fridlington, Assistant Director of Development, formerly Planning Manager, but now Development. I don't think this is confidential information. Basically, what has happened is Ripon Home signed a Section 106 agreement to give a certain number of property to a registered social landlord. The registered social landlord's pulled out of that and they've been offered to us. So the reason it's confidential is just around the money that's being paid for those houses. So it's not a 106 in the same way that we would normally see. It's come about because an RSL's pulled out to an agreement. I don't think any of that is confidential. That's just public knowledge. Thank you.
Right. I believe now I've moved to. I would like to move that we note the report. Can I have a second, please?
Councillor Parkin's got his hand up. Chair.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Councillor Parkin. Can I have a show of hands for all in support, please?
That's everybody except for Councillor James Watson, Chair.
Yes, I'll abstain and have my abstention. I don't understand why we're taking a resolution for a noting, but nevertheless, I'll abstain and record my abstention, please. I'm confused about the matter.
Right, well, thank you for that anyway. I'll move now to item 6, the corporate plan performance targets. We have the improvement officer here today to present this report. Amar, would you please like to begin?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'm replacing Kaftra, who usually does this meeting. And what I intend to do, if it's okay, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
What I will do is go through the covering report and then go through the appendix. And then there were some additional questions that came up at the pre-meeting. And I've got some responses. Joe sent them out and I'll just go through the responses as well. So this is a corporate plan update. It's the final update for the old corporate plan, and it's the Q4 update from January to March 2020. So to just go through the report, this is for the unlocking our growth potential theme. There were 6 targets remaining. There were 7 targets in total. 1 had previously been completed, and 4 were completed in the final quarter. Just to go through them, GO1, through the use of key account management, develop a relationship with a minimum of 25 local businesses by March 2020. We achieved this with 112 businesses engaged with. G08, process all major planning applications 10% better than the minimum for special measures per annum. That was 100% achieved. G13, work with partners to deliver an average of 20 units of affordable homes each year. 28 have been achieved. G17, to procure a new partner for building the next generation of council housing by 2020. That's been achieved with a new partner selected. There was one target that wasn't achieved, and that was G11. Through a programme of target refurbishment, bring 10 empty properties from the private sector back into use per annum. We've achieved 2 in this year, and there's 7 in the pipeline. And the final one, G10, we're still waiting on information, enable the development of 272 new residential properties within the district by March 2020. So we're just waiting on a completion figure for that one. From what I understand, planning has to go out to visit the sites to check that they're completed, and I think that's been delayed due to the COVID pandemic. So in conclusion, out of the 7 targets, 5 have been achieved, so that's 72%. 1 was failed, which is 14%, and 1 awaiting information. And that's the report. If the chair's happy, I'll go on to the appendix.
Yes, that'll be fine, thank you.
Yeah. So going over to the appendix, I won't read each out. I won't read each progress update, but I'll just give a summary. And again, just going through G01, that's the key account management. I've just spoken about this. We achieved 82 in the quarter, which is 112 in total for the year. G08, process all major planning applications 10% better. Again, just to mention that is 100%, so it's achieved. G10, we've spoken about. That figure is going to be reported once available from planning. G11 gives a lot more information on the failed target of bringing back 10 empty properties from the private sector. It goes into more detail on the location and the work that we've done with the energy firm. And again, it just says at the bottom that we're waiting on 7 to be brought back until completed. G13, again, 28 homes have been achieved in the year, and G17, a new partner has been procured for, it's called Bolsover Homes. With the appendix, if everyone's happy with the appendix, I'll just go through the additional questions raised at the pre-meet. So I'll just bring that up on screen. G10, to enable the development of at least 272 new residential properties within by March 2020. So the questions raised was, when will the data be confirmed, and is this target going to be in the new framework? It will be in the new framework with the annual target set at 272. And again, just Carl Apps gave some more information about when the completion figure will be available, and that's from planning. G11, a question was raised around the empty properties. Members appreciate the work that's done in this area. What is the target for the new corporate plan, for the new council plan? And again, we've mentioned the empty property strategy. That should be completed by January 2021. And that's to bring back the council's vision. And it is, again, the similar one of 5 empty properties per year. Going on to G13, work with partners to deliver an average of 20 units of affordable homes each year. And again, the question raised was, can we have a summary of the 28 units, their locations, and are they Dragonfly developments or by other means? And there should be on the 3rd page, the final page, a breakdown of where the completions are on the additional appendix questions, if members are happy. And the final question, G17, procure a new partner for building next generation council housing. There was a question raised, could we get clarification on why there's been a change in terminology from be at home to Bolsover home? And again, just another comment, this is confusion given that we'll be working with the same partner. Does the change not hinder our brand program identity? And an update from Ian Barber, the property and services manager. It said that Bolsover home was agreed and designed because Be at Home was not recognised as a council house building programme. So what they've done is they basically, in summary, they've made the logo into the corporate colours, and there's a new logo, if members can see at the bottom. They're just running with the same theme as the Bolsover Homes logo. And that's all, Chair. Any questions?
Well, thank you for a start. Has any members got any questions they wish to ask?
Councillor Watson would like to speak, Chair.
Right. Would you like to come in, Councillor Watson, please?
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, for that. It's Councillor James Watson, and I represent Pinkston Ward. So on that, what you've outlined there, because we are going to discuss later in the agenda the empty property strategy, and the sound wasn't the best, so I may have misheard you, but it seems on as that, in a sense, have we not predetermined the strategy? Well, particularly with regard to the targets, because as far as I picked up, and I may have been in error, that you said that the empty homes target was now going to be 5 as opposed to 10. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair. That was again, I think what the BDC framework was brought to the group. Was it at the last meeting, Joe? Yes, it was, and it was discussed, and it was set at 5, and that was brought forward by the officer responsible for it.
So doesn't that, in a sense, pre-run the strategy which is set out in the agenda item that we're going to discuss, which I understood was still at the development writing of the draft strategy stage, because that seems to conclude in September to October 2020. So has that already been predetermined? And is that a reflection on the missing of the performance targets in the last period, because it's been cut from 10 to 5? Is that lessons learned that's been incorporated into that target? And I'm having confusion how that plays in with a strategy that looks like it's still in development.
Yes, I think Carl has just appeared. The author of the empty strategy may be able to respond.
Hello. So that one target, yeah, it was halved from 10 to 5. We were consistently missing it throughout the length of the last strategy. And that 5 target was initially the holding period when we were going from the end of one strategy before the start of the next. So at that point, we said, well, realistically, we can probably hit 5 because that's where we've been there or thereabouts. Part of the issue is around the number of units versus the actual empty properties. And there was some confusion around that because, for instance, the pub that was converted brought forward 11 units, but that was only converted as seen as one property. So there's always been a challenge around the target, and we wanted to sort of make that more clear in terms of what we're doing. And the number of properties coming forward is only one part of the strategy. So it's only one indicator. So the whole strategy can't be about just those 5 properties. There are other aspects to it, but that's just one of the measures that we'd be using on that. But I can obviously go into that in more detail when we move on to the strategy. And it could be that we look at that 5 target and say, well, actually, that's not enough of a stretch, and we need to alter that.
Thank you.
That's discuss it further later on. Councillor Wilson, Mr. App seems to be. Do you have a screen, something on your screen, Mr. Apps? You seem to be in a very foggy environment, if not.
No, unfortunately, the lens on my laptop has fallen out, so I look like I'm in fog. So I have to say this in every meeting. I should probably sort of send a note in advance. But yeah, so apologies for that. I'm not a heavy smoker, and I'm not in the middle of a fire or anything like that. It is just the lens has dropped out.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from any members? So I'd like to thank you, Akmar, for joining us and bringing this report.
Councillor Parkin would like to speak, Chair.
Oh, right. Sorry, Councillor Parkin, please come in.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, Tom, I've not got that on my screen, you see.
Oh, sorry, I think your microphone's off, Councillor Parkin.
I've listened to what's been said, and I'm just asking your opinion. If this situation of COVID, is it purely that's caused the delay? Because it seems as though you're in a good position, and the ones that's failed, is that purely due to COVID, or is it just, did we overestimate or underestimate?
Is that to me around the empty properties?
Yeah.
That has caused a delay. One of the sites has stopped during the COVID impact, which our partners have been working on. And then E.ON, who've been also looking at another property, they've had to furlough a lot of their staff. So that has delayed the delivery of some of the units, certainly.
Yeah, so the figures could have been a lot better, other than the fact of this situation that we're in. Thank you, that's fine.
Thank you, Graham. Anybody else wish to raise any points? So
nobody else, Chair.
Nobody this time, Tom. Thank you. Right, thank you, Akmar, for coming and joining us. Feel free to stay if you wish, but you've probably got plenty of other things to do. And again, thank you for coming and attending. Right, we'll move to. Thank you.
Chair, can we just get a mover and seconder for the recommendations on page 33?
Right, yeah. Can I ask for a mover to this?
Councillor Tom Monroe.
Thank you. And a seconder? Derek Adams? Thank you. All in favour? Can we have a show of hands, please?
That's everybody, Chair.
Thank you very much. So this time we can move to item 7 then, please, which is the draft bowls over tourism strategy. I've got a speech to make. We will now move to item 7, where we have the Assistant Director of Development and the Town Centre and Tourism Officer joining us to present this. We also have portfolio holder for regeneration is with us, and this morning it is Councillor Smythe. If I could pass over to Chris and John, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chris Billington, Assistant Director of Development. I'll very briefly talk through the covering report and a quick insight into some of the strategy. John's along to answer any detailed questions. Can you all hear okay? So just got a bit of gap on the vision. Is everyone okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think Scrutiny Committee will be aware, members will be aware that the tourism strategy has been aimed at the council for quite some time now. John Henry was put in post specifically to deliver on this and spent a lot of time and effort pulling this together. And what we've found is that, as you'll see, if you've got your reports in front of you on page 43 in particular, on the executive summary, you'll see a whole load of data explaining the importance of the visitor economy to us. You know, it's worth £140 million a year. It creates 1,700 full-time equivalent jobs. And of course, we've seen COVID come in there and really threaten it. But we feel in the longer run, the strategy will pay off, because what it's really about is that at the minute bowls over, visitors, around about 90% of our visitor economy, there's only 10% of our visitors have an overnight stay. The significance is that overnight visitors spend more than 4 times as much as a day visitor. So there's plenty of opportunity there to expand our local economy, bring more investment into the district. One of the things that we've found creating the strategy is that the hotels that we have aren't very aligned to the visitor economy. So we have hotels on the motorway that serve commercial purposes, business events and so on. We obviously have Van Dijk's, that's great for the wedding venue and so on. But we do like accommodation, and we do like, in particular, non-serviced accommodation. So one of the key thrusts of the policy is looking at things like camping sites, caravan sites, and how to build on that. That's what we would term non-service. Obviously, there's other opportunities for service accommodation, and we're currently looking at properties that we can reuse as holiday lets and so on. We've also found that we've got some very A really good offer on cycle networks. So a lot of the policy is again about building on those cycle networks. The advantage, of course, is if COVID resurges, cycling networks and self-accommodation could be something that can be done even in the midst of COVID. So we see this as building resilience on a locally distinctive feature of our area, our district. We've also found that Bolsover tends to be underrepresented, get my words out straight, sorry, underrepresented on the web. We've not got a very good web presence compared to, say, Visit Chesterfield, and that's a really urgent piece of work that we're trying to do. We've noticed that with the economy in general in Bolsover district. Digital strategy is a really important thing. So a lot of our businesses aren't quite grasping how to get on in the internet and how to really push their market. And we want a bigger presence on things like the Visit Peak District site and do our own thing a little bit like Chesterfield Visit. So in your cover report, you'll see that there's plenty of actions listed there. You'll see that we've done a little summary of what's been happening during COVID. The reopenings took us a little bit by surprise because earlier on in the lockdown, they were talking about the visitor economy not coming back until next year, but it's here and staycations are a good thing. So we're hoping we see what might be termed a bit of a V-shaped recovery where it's plummeted and then it's coming back and it'll continue to grow. And of course, your report will say, now this report is still in draft stage. It's open for comments. And of course, we'd welcome any feedback on it. One of the points I've already received is that we perhaps need a little bit more about accessibility. And I think that is perhaps a point that we can definitely add to the strategy about our visitor officer for people with disabilities, things like autism friendly, people that are less mobile. Because again, that's a huge market. That's probably, again, undercatered for across the UK, really. So we're quite pleased with the strategy as it stands. We know it's not perfect. So we're really happy to welcome any comments, discuss it today. And obviously, any feedback that comes in over the next few weeks will be gratefully received. So thank you, Chair. I'll pass over to yourself and members.
Right. Trish, would you like to come in first?
Thank you, Chair. Tricia Clough, Councillor, Alt Hucknall Ward. Congratulations on quite a good beginning. But the one thing, as somebody who's toured a lot, I noticed the thing that stood out to me is there is nothing in there about toilets. Now, no, don't raise your eyebrows, Jen. Toilets are an essential part of tourism, especially for people with disabilities, for people of a certain generation who need to visit them more often. So I would like to see something in there about accessibility for toilets. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts, would you like to come in? Joanne, I
think Councillor Kirkham raised his hand.
Right.
Councillor Watson would like to speak as well, Chair.
Right. Shall we start with Councillor Kirkham first then, please?
Right. Thanks, Councillor Wilson. My question is about skills and also business support within the strategy. Is there going to be bits of the strategy put into linking with local colleges to improve skills with respect to people starting the businesses within this sector? Because I think, we want to encourage small businesses to start up and grow and take advantage of this new economic development. Thank you.
Would you like to reply to that at all?
Yeah, I totally take the point Councillor Kirkham's made, but I think that comes in other places. I think, this is a sort of strategy, I guess, about visitors and attracting visitors. The skill stuff is equally important, but I think we've got another work stream that captures that. And again, it's part of the work that the Visit Peak District people do as well. So we have got a strategy where we are communicating with businesses as it is already. Again, introducing them to the things like the webinars, as mentioned in your cover report. But I think the overall sort of skills education side of it, I think would come in elsewhere from some of the other work streams, to be fair. But it's certainly something that we're paying attention to in the district. There are skills gaps.
Thank you for that, Chris. Could I bring Councillor Roberts in now, please? Or is it Councillor Watson? Councillor Roberts?
Councillor Watson, Chair.
It's James, Councillor Watson, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Roberts. And would you like to come in now, please? Councillor Watson?
Is it me or is it Councillor Roberts? I'm a little confused. Is it Councillor Roberts?
I don't need to ask any questions.
Right. It is you, Councillor Watson, please. Sorry for the confusion. It's my fault.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. So my point is, and I support Councillor Kirkham's view, because that was one of my points as well that I was trying to develop. But another one is, with respect to your strategy, your tourism strategy, you seem to have highlighted 3 key properties in the tourism strategy: Hardwick Hall, Bolsover Castle, and Cresswell Crags. Those seem to be, the key attractions that you think, people would come to visit Bolsover for. So my question is that in your strategy to increase overnight stays, what sort of consideration have you given to whether the people who come to see those attractions are necessarily going to reside in camping and caravan sites? Have you considered a greater diversity of overnight stay options, given that maybe that demographic perhaps may not, on first blush, want to stay in a camping or a caravan site?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if you're looking for the strategy, I think when you get to page 61, for instance, there's a graphic there that John's included to try and sort of illustrate that there's a whole range of attractions within and around the local area. And I think John might want to come in and add some more detail. I think John feels very strongly that what we're missing is that connectivity to sort of bring people in who might want to come to an attraction outside the district, stay within the district, and then do Bolsover Castle the following day and Hardwick the following day. So there's a whole section of that dedicated really to sort of saying, how can we widen our offer, and what sort of demographics would be interested in that? And of course, as John sees it, there's quite a lot of work to do in partnership and collaboratively with the neighbouring authorities.
Okay, but I thought the primary reason for the strategy was to get people to stay here. So again, you've got to judge or adjust your offer, your residential offer, if you want to call it, to the people that you think you're going to attract. Because if you're just going to, market the fact that it's on the connectivity, then why are we not, for instance, seeing people overnight staying in the present offer? That would be the counterfactual, wouldn't it? So the point would be that in your strategy, have you taken account of the fact that if you widen your offer, you also widen the base of people wanting to visit, and therefore the sort of accommodation that they want to stay in may be also wider, and pinning it all onto caravan and camping sites might not catch the demographic that you're looking to attract, because I understood that the overall part of the strategy was to get people to stay overnight, because when they stay overnight, they're more productive in a sense, they're more, they spend more. So that's all I was looking at, whether you've thought about that alignment, and if so, how you thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the non-service accommodation is highlighted because we're significantly short of it. That's one of the reasons or perhaps potentially one of the reasons for lack of overnight stays. There just is not the non-service accommodation here anyway, or not when it looks at other providing service accommodation, through promoting and encouraging opportunities to go into providing service accommodation. Unfortunately, we've got the pay. Clown Garden Village was offering a hotel, and obviously that's stymied as well. So there's lots of work around trying to promote and encourage the operators to come into the district. The most likely place potentially at the minute would be somewhere like Bolsover with Oxcroft House, which is currently under occupied. Sorry, it's empty at the minute. So there's lots of work around that, but of course the operators need to see the numbers. So without being twee about it, it's a little bit chicken and egg. If you've not got the numbers, you won't get the operators unless they believe that there's a speculative investment to be made there. I don't know if John Hendy wants to add anything else to that.
Come in, John.
Okay. Sorry, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yes. I was just going to add that, yes, we want to just increase the amount of accommodation in the district generally, but there is, a bit of a gap in the market for the non-serviced accommodation at the moment. We're, way behind other areas in that type of accommodation, and that's something we really could see an increase in. But yeah, generally, if we can look at the area, a bit of a wider area to help attract more people here, not just rely on our three main, gems of attractions, but actually see what else is in the, a 40-minute drive, and looking at both all around the district, and we will hopefully get more people coming to stay. But yeah, there is the and that way we could also use accommodation that's in our neighbouring areas as well.
Right, thank you for that. Does anybody else want to come in?
Chair, Councillor
Anna.
Can I say something this time?
Yes,
Councillor Roberts.
Yeah,
Anybody? Councillor Roberts, Whitwell Ward. We've not got Doncaster down at all. South Yorkshire Aircraft Museum, Lakeland site, various other things. None of those seem to be the race course. None of that seems to be involved, and that's only 40 minutes away. Should that be included by any chance? It's just somebody's offered it today, and I've got a leaflet here. You can't see it, but there we are. It's another attraction we could perhaps put in there.
Yes, I think we could add those. We've got the Yorkshire Wildlife Park, which is in Doncaster. That's in the list. But yes, those ones can be added as well. I agree.
Tom Munro, Councillor
Yes.
David Dixon, and Councillor Graham Parkin would like to speak.
Right, I've got Tom first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Tom Munro, Whitwell Ward. Can I first of all welcome the report? It's been a long time coming, and it's something we've needed to work on for quite some time. But I do agree that we need to look at the wider area. We are naive if we think that Bolsover district of itself can offer sufficient attractions to merit vast amounts of additional accommodation for overnight stays. We have to look at the wider district of Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Leicestershire, South Yorkshire, etc., and even the Peak District. And as one who goes to the Peak District quite a lot, it's only a 45-minute drive and you're in the heart of the Peak. So all that makes it feasible for us to offer accommodation if our tourism policy includes all of the attractions in those areas. And I agree with Councillor Roberts, we need a thorough trawl of all of the possible attractions to get them in. I wanted to come in on first of all, on the whole concept of where we might put these other types of overnight accommodation, and ask the policy writers to consider, in particular in the local plan policy WC5, which refers to town centre regeneration. We're all of us aware that town centre regeneration is not going to be about necessarily the retail side of town centre regeneration because of the whole shift in the market. However, there may be opportunities for town centre regeneration to include offers of that type of overnight stay accommodation. And we should be perhaps asking our planners in particular to encourage developers to think possibly along those lines as an alternative to just building further residential accommodation. So that's one thing I wanted to come in on. The other point, there were two other points, if I may, Chair, just to refer to. That is, are we confident, and this may well be a question, may not be for the policy writers, but certainly I think we need to be confident. Are we confident that the existing hotels, not just within Bolsover district, but also, for example, within Bassetlaw, within Chesterfield, within North East, have got all the necessary written material about the Bolsover district attractions? Some sort of reassurance on that would be useful. For example, within Bassetlaw on the ring road at Worksop, they're currently building a new Premier Inn. So that's one we'll need to focus on and make sure that we get a good shout there when it comes to publicity. The last question I wanted to address was, to what extent, there are two things. To what extent are we going to really talk up and play up the new Cresswell to Poolsbrook cycle track? Because that, of course, is a major new attraction and very much part of the Bolsover offer, starting at Cresswell and going all the way through Clown and out to Poolsbrook Country Park. And there may well be opportunities alongside that for opportunities for sites suitable for motorhomes, etc., and camping, and that needs perhaps further investigation. And then finally, when it comes to developing such things as Bolsover district walks, I'm more than happy, given that I do a lot of walking, to offer my services and certainly to point officers in an appropriate direction. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Liz, would you like to come in now? Yeah, Liz. Would you like to come in?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Councillor Smythe.
There we go. Better?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that this area does have a huge amount of potential, and this report has identified that. And I think at a time where we are expecting quite significant rises in unemployment, this is an area where we could make some gains. As Chris mentioned earlier, staycations will probably become quite popular as people stay more local or stay in the UK. And if you look on page 56, if we can just increase those numbers a little, we can increase that £140 million. Then we can increase, obviously, the number employed in full-time education. I'm sorry, in full-time employment in the tourism industry. So I think it's really important that we do push that extra money coming to the district. And I agree with a lot of all your points, the overnight stays here, the cycle routes, things that you can do outdoors rather than indoors. So yes, thank you for all your points. And obviously this is a draft document, so we'll be taking them on board.
Thank you. Tom, have we got anybody else? Oh yeah, Trish, is there anybody? Tom, have you got anybody before Trish speak?
Chair, in order, I've got Councillor David Dixon, Councillor Graham Parkin, and now Councillor Tricia Clough.
Right, I'll leave you to call them in then from now for this part.
Well, Councillor David Dixon, could you turn your camera on, please, Councillor Dixon? Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor David Dixon, Barbara Ward. A couple of items. One is we talk about the cycling routes. I think that we still lack a lot of cycle routes that are completely joined up. I know Councillor Monroe was talking about the walking routes. but I think that we need to encourage more cycle routes as well. And I know this is mainly done through Derbyshire County Council, but I'm not sure what kind of investment we actually put into this as well. The other point that I wanted to make is you talk about the market towns of Bolsover, Clown, Shirebrook and South Normanton. Unfortunately, Clown does not have a market, and yet it's down as a, and I know we're trying to encourage a market to come into Clown, but at the moment it's listed as a market town, and I'm not sure whether that's just the traditional way of showing Clown as it previously was a market, but not now. And can I also agree with Councillor Tricia Clough regarding toilets? I think it's woefully inadequate in all the areas, and I think it is important that we have those to encourage visitors. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, have you got?
Chair, Chris Fridlington would like to respond to what Councillor Dixon said.
Right, would you like to come in, Chris, please?
Yeah, just as Councillor Dixon was speaking, we mentioned cycle networks. It was just to reassure Councillor Dixon there's a whole swathe of work going on with exactly that, joining up the networks. Again, coincidentally, John Hendy's leading on that with Matt Connolly. We're currently chasing, I think it's about 1.4 million from Sustrans to do some of the networks. But that's a whole part of a piece of work we're doing to look at all those missing links as part of economic recovery, as well as the importance for the visitor economy. So it was just a point I wanted to pick up while we were on the topic of cycling.
Thank you. Tom, you got anybody else to bring in?
Chair, the next one is Councillor Graham Parkin.
Thank you. Would you like to come in, Graham?
You're on mute, Councillor Parkin.
Can you hear me?
Can now, yes.
Yeah, okay. I've listened to all the good comments and what have you. And we in South Normanton, we are considering trying to install a cycle route. One thing that I do ask about is Plesley Vale. You know, I mean, I think that is a very underused thing that in Bolsover that could be something special. I do remember at one time they were talking about rebuilding the house that was on the grounds and also installing yurts for people to stay in, but I don't know if that has ever happened. And I always think it's a wonderful thing that we have that we don't sort of make the most of. Is there any plans for expanding the use of the Plesley Vale?
Tom, I think Tom Scott, I think Liz Smith would like to come in on
Councillor Smith, Joe Wilson and Chris Fridlington would like to respond to that, Chair.
Right.
Yeah, it was just to confirm to members that we will be discussing some information around Plesley Vale later within the exempt section of the meeting. So I wouldn't want to go into that in too much detail at this stage, but that might help things to sort of make more sense to you when we get to that point later in the meeting, Councillor Parkin.
Right. Are you all right with that, Tom? Councillor Parkin?
Yeah, the next one to speak, Councillor Liz Smith put her hand up, Chair.
Thank you. Microphone, Liz.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we're going to discuss that later in the meeting, and I'm sure Chris will have some more detail for you on Plesley Vale.
Right, thank you.
And Chris Fridlington would like to respond to that as well, Chair.
Right, come on in, Chris.
I was just going to reiterate what Joe and Councillor Smith already said, really. Right at the very start of the meeting, you heard about the report for Plesley Vale. and that was for pre-planning work. And obviously later in the agenda, we'll come back and explain a little bit more about that as we get there. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Tom?
Chair, we also have Councillor Tricia Clough would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Clough, Old Hucknall Ward. On page 64, 8.5, it talks about £1.5 million of DFT funding for 3 projects, all of which are related to the proposed route of HS2. Now, in the Times last week, there was an article that said that possibly this leg of the HS2 may not be going ahead. Do we have any contingency plans, and will that money still be coming?
So Councillor Clough, is Chris again, Assistant Director. We've been very recently discussing that amount of money with Sustrans. I think I have a typo in the report. So I think originally it might have been to do with mitigation for HS2, but it was definitely there with Sustrans, and they met on Monday, I think, to really discuss some of the works, including the Plesley Vale missing link as well. So as far as I'm aware, that money is not reliant on the HS2 going forward, but it is reliant on us being able to deliver early next year, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, I think we've got Derek wanting to come in. Adam?
Yes, Councillor Derek Adams would like to speak, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tom. Question for Chris. With regard to cycle tracks, there's one proposed for Bolsover going through the Coalite, which will link us up to Poolsbrook. From Poolsbrook, you get down to Rother Valley. From Rother Valley, you get up Transpennine Way. Is it possible to have any update on that for Coalite?
I believe that section of track is part of the Sustrans offer that we're looking at now. We realise the urgency on that. We've also got an offer from the MP's office to support us with that proposal as well, if we get into difficulties or whatever. So it's one of the key pieces of work that we're doing on the cycle network, to get all that link from Coalite all the way down to Hardwick Hall and across back to Vale.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Chair, Councillor James Watson would like to speak.
Right, would you like to come in, James, please?
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. James Watson, Pinkston Ward. I'd just like to support Councillor Monroe's earlier point in the debate that if the key element of the strategy is the promotion of overnight accommodation and overnight stays, that we should look at the diversity of that offer. And Councillor Monroe indicated about town centres and bed and breakfast. I think that is the key thing here. If you want people to stay, then you've got to offer a diverse offer, and at the moment we don't, and I think that's a key thing. And so I support Councillor Monroe's statement in that, as long as I've interpreted him correctly, which I think from his nodding head I have.
Thank you. Councillor Tom, did you want to come back in?
There's nobody else left to speak, Chair.
Well, just to say thank you to Councillor Watson. That's exactly what I was referring to. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Tom, as well. So, Joanne, anything you want to say?
We just need to move the recommendations in the report then, Chair, if we've finished questions. So the recommendations are on page 41 of papers. So you just need a mover and a seconder, Chair.
Right. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Monroe's indicated, and Trish Clough's willing to second it. Can I have a show of hands for all in favour, please?
That's everybody, Chair.
All right, thank you for that. It's very pleasing to know it's unanimous. So we are now moving, Joanne, to?
We're on to item 8, Chair.
Right, which is?
It's a verbal report.
Yeah. Right, thank you. Who's going to present it for us?
That's mine, Chair. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah,
Rushing you.
Assistant Director of Development again. We've not got a formal report for you, but we noted that Scrutiny had quite a lot of questions about what's been happening since lockdown. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of some of what the Development Directorate's been up to, and then open it up to questions, or if there's anything specific that we can help with or answer, and give you an idea of the direction forward. So I think, first of all, a number of you might know that I've been working down in the depot since just before lockdown for 2 or 3 months, giving a bit of support to housing. And I mentioned that because during lockdown, Andy Clark and Mark Dungworth, who do the housing repairs, got their lads out in the middle of lockdown and did all the voids up to date, which has allowed us, Deborah and Di's team, to go immediately into renting our voids. So that's a really important part of income. There's about 60 odd that would have otherwise been stuck. So they've done a brilliant job mobilising their operatives to get out there, get the voids done, and get those things let again. Really important piece of work, that. And that had a side effect of bringing in quite a few of the contractors back in as well, which is the same with property services. That's Ian Barber's team, where during lockdown they've been doing things like Safe and Warm. You might have seen the paddocks have restarted, and that's got contractors back into work. And for 1 or 2 of our businesses, has kept them alive. So we've had people like doing the roofs, and a whole load of stuff where otherwise they've either been furloughed or they would have been really struggling. On the commercial services side of it, you might know that Natalie Edges has given birth to 2 lovely twin boys, but she was a month early. So she dropped Sally straight in the middle of it. But she's done a brilliant job. Well, what we're finding from our own commercial properties at the Tangent and at Plesley Vale is we've had a handful of people asking for a bit of a holiday on the rents, and literally only a handful, we're talking 3 or 4, who want to sort of come back to us and have a repayment schedule from, say, October onwards. We've had a handful of people handing the notice in, but we're actually letting more units in the minute than we have done for quite a while. Incredible demand for units at Plesley Vale. And it sort of reflects the economic rebound from the 2009, where people are looking for perhaps cheap space to either expand because they need it for social distancing, or because they want to downsize, or because of redundancies and whatever, they start their own business. So we're doing really well in the commercial services. That's bringing income in. Your housing department's bringing their income in from the tenants and the rent. You've got property services going full at it. We've already heard that the framework for Bolsover Homes has been agreed, and at council, members will have the opportunity to give that the green light, the Bolsover Homes schemes. So there's been a lot of work going on just through the services, and each and every time that we put things forward and keep moving during the lockdown, it's been creating and safeguarding jobs. So that's a really important part of the work. From an economic development point of view, that seems quite small. It's got 5 full-time equivalents in it, one of which, unfortunately, Paul McGrath, had a minor stroke at the end of May. So we have been pulling in help from left, right and centre, but we've been very busy. We're working to an economic recovery plan that's got about 30 action points on it, and that includes helping to administer and administering grant funding. I'm sure members will be aware there's been small business rates relief from Revs and Bens. There's been the recovery funds that we've helped Partnership deliver for the PPE and the sanitisers reopenings happen. And we had the discretionary grant funds, which we administered, which delivered more than £600,000 worth of funding to over 70 businesses and a whole range of businesses, anything and everything you can imagine, from hairdressers and nail beauty to people who do stuff for hotels, bespoke furniture. And we found through that there's an amazing amount of resilience in this district. We're fortunate because we're not exposed like some town centres to the big brands that are starting to give rise to shop closures. So we have got a locally distinctive offer here. Logistics, whilst we sometimes wonder about our dependence on logistics, hugely in demand because of the COVID and because of Brexit. And there's a big opportunity there. So at the minute, we're very much focused on the immediate business continuity, business recovery, getting things back open, supporting either via grant funding or letting people know where there's support. We're starting to build towards the future. We're starting to build relationships with Clown and South Normanton in particular for town centre regeneration. Starting to work out with Shirebrook a little bit as well. Our difficult one is Bolsover. We're struggling to find a contact for that. You've obviously heard about the tourism strategy, the cycling stuff that we're doing, we think is really important. And there's some signs, I think, from what we've seen, that there is a recovery going on. There is green shoots. We don't know how long it's going to last for, and we're concerned about what people are starting to hype up as a second spike in September and October. So a lot of work we're doing as well is about resilience. What can we do to ensure our businesses can keep functioning and keep opening and keep selling goods if we get hit by a lockdown again? And some of that's about the digital offer and websites and our businesses to be better on the internet, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through a website that we operate. So there's lots and lots of stuff going on, but there are some hopeful signs, and a lot of this has been the council central to it, whether it's through support, whether it's through funding, whether it's through our own operations, whether it's through the positive and proactive approach we do take to businesses in this district. So I hope that gives you a flavour of what's been happening over the last few weeks. We've certainly been very busy, and like I say, we are seeing some green shoots, and long may that continue, and we'll obviously be there to support that recovery the best that we can. Thank you, Chair. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, very helpful, and a lot of nice and positive actions moving forward, I hope there. Has anybody else got any questions on that? Tom? Joanne? Tom, does anybody want to come in? Any more questions want asking? No. Joanne?
Councillor James Watson, Chair.
Right, thank you. James, would you like to come in, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Wilson. On the point about resilience, the discretionary grants that Bolsover District Council was allocated, has that all been allocated out? That was the discretionary grant where Bolsover District Council had the opportunity to fashion the criteria to support basically our businesses within Bolsover. And I wondered what the status of that was, the current state of affairs.
Yeah, no problem. The government allowed us to give us a funding pot of £620,000, of which 604,000 has been sent out, paid out. The reason we haven't spent the full pot is we got some money back from commitments we've made where they got the money from elsewhere. So we've got about £20,000 left, with about 18 of that, I think, committed now. As I was saying earlier that's supported about 70 businesses, a lot self-employed, some of them bigger opportunities, a whole wide range of things. So, like I said, £604,000.
I'm afraid I missed the very end of Mr. Priddington's comments there, but
just to repeat, so the total funding pot of 620, 604,000 has been paid out, and the last little bit of money is coming out now, where we've got 3 or 4 businesses that are waiting for their award to be finalised.
And are you likely to produce a report on how you allocated that money and which businesses you supported?
That was certainly the intention, and I'm sorry that we've not had that available today, but certainly we intend to report exactly where that money's gone to, by sector, by award, etc.
Okay, thank you.
And just as an aside, I think we worked it out that the grant funding we've offered has gone towards safeguarding as many as 500 jobs, and in terms of the companies that we've awarded money to.
Thank you for that, Chris. Tom, is there anyone else wishing to come in?
Councillor Tricia Clough would like to speak, Chair.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Actually, Councillor Wilson just asked the question that I was going to ask, and it's been answered. So thank you.
Thank you. Tom, anybody else?
Nobody else, Chair.
Right, thank you. Joanne, did you want to come in on anywhere there?
No, I think that's the end of that item, Chair. So we just need to sort of say note the update and then move on.
It don't need it. Does it not need a mover and a seconder?
No, because there was no formal report. It was just a verbal report.
That's fine.
So we're now moving on to the 2 strategies that were added under urgent items.
Right.
Have you managed to find where we are in your notes?
Is that item 9 then, Joanne?
No, just before the item 9. Flip back over a page.
Is it under the urgent items?
Yeah, item 2, urgent items.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. I now propose to deal with the 2 urgent items I raised at the beginning of the meeting. We have the Joint Housing Strategy and Growth Manager joining us to present. If you could take the report on the Empty Houses Property Strategy, we've done that. So have I not moved on far enough, Joanne?
No, that's the correct one. So we're going to discuss the empty property strategy first.
Right.
And we just need to bring Carl in.
Yeah, seemed a bit jumbled. Thank you, Carl.
Hello, thank you for inviting me along. So the empty property strategy that we had come to a sort of natural conclusion, and we wanted to revisit that and develop a new strategy. I think it's a really good time at the minute with the virus. I know Chris has already talked about that, but we do think there'll be an implication for housing potentially, and there's the potential that it may have an impact on the number of empty properties that we have within the district for a number of reasons, job losses or landlords not being able to rent out those properties. So what we've done is at this point, we've identified a timeline for how we want to tackle the strategy. I wanted to bring it here for members' sight of that, so they're aware of what we're proposing. So at the beginning, it's that information collation, because any good strategy has to be rooted in a strong baseline. So we'll be looking through the information that we have, and we will take that from a variety of sources, including existing council data, national trends, and anything from the B2N2 LEP, and maybe Sheffield City Region if we're able to access some information from there as well. And from there, we'll start to develop and write the draft strategy, working closely with a portfolio holder for housing. Once we're in a position that we can start to talk about the emerging themes and trends and start to pull that together into a sort of the bare bones of a strategy, our intention is to bring it back to this committee, so they're able to look at the strategy, the direction of travel that we're taking, and for them to sort of, or for you, sorry, to give your view on whether you feel we're answering the right question, or even if we've asked the right questions, I suppose. And then the next part is presuming that you're happy with that, or any amendments you make, we will then include those, and then we start talking to our partners, stakeholders. So we would look to talk to registered providers, landlords, estate agents, homeowners, and other stakeholders that we're aware of within the sector, who would be able to give us some relevant and useful intel. And then obviously once we've had that consultation, we then analyse the findings of that, see how that influences the strategy in that point, and make all the necessary amendments. And then the proposal is again to bring it back to scrutiny if there are any major amendments that we need to take. If we've kind of gone along the right lines that have already been identified, we won't want to waste your time to sort of talk about saying, well, what you said was right and it's been confirmed. But if there's some contentious or some major changes we need to make, we'd certainly bring it back to discuss. And then we'd go through the usual process of SAMT, executive report, papers to governance, exec pre-meet, exec meeting, and then once it's agreed, it would then be implemented and circulated and published on the website. So that's the proposed timetable. Just a few things that we're going to do. We provide empty property data to the ward level. It's GDPR compliant, so you won't get the names and addresses or the names of the owners and the like, but you will get where those empty properties are within your ward. There are, as it says in the report, approximately 750. That will have changed by now because it's November. But within that 750, there will be some that are part of the natural ebb and flow of the market. So we know that properties stay empty for a period of time whilst they're being sold, or they're waiting to let that property, or the owner is doing something with them. So if they're making an active choice to market that property or get it occupied, then we would kind of offer advice and assistance where possible. But normally they sort of take care of themselves. The property group that we try to aim for are those properties where I suppose you describe as market failure. For whatever reason, those properties aren't going to come back to market. The landlord has buried their head in the sand with it, or they're not in a position that they're able to do anything with that property. And that's where we start working with those in a bit more intensely, and we'd work with partners such as Action Housing. We do a empty property trial with E.ON at North East Derbyshire District Council, but what that has facilitated is that we can bring E.ON in to work with individual landlords, not as a contractual basis, because we have at North East, but as a sort of linking those two up, and they do it as a private arrangement rather than funded through the council. So that's some of the work that we would do. And obviously we'll take out the voids that Boards Over Housing will have done, will reduce that number as well. And if New Homes Bonus is still in existence, then obviously that has a positive impact on that also.
Right, thank you for that. Tom, have we anyone wishing to come in and speak?
Councillor James Watson wishes to speak, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. James Watson, Pinkston Ward. My question to Mr. Apps is, and it links back to the previous conversation we had earlier in the agenda, which seems to have run ahead, is presumably the strategic objective of the empty property strategy is to bring empty properties back into use. There was a previous target of 10 houses per year. That appears to be cut, according to the previous conversation, to 5 houses per year. Given the difficulties that seem to be inherent there, has any consideration been given not to have an empty property strategy at all? It seems very resource intensive to formulate a strategy, to employ various people and so on and so forth, yet yields limited results. So my question to Mr. Apps is, has any consideration been given to not having an empty property strategy?
In all honesty, no, it hasn't. We recognise that empty properties are a blight on the area. They can be challenging, and if they're left alone and within a street, then they can have that it's that broken window effect, that if you have that one, then it sort of starts to spread out, and it sort of creates that antisocial behaviour, and it becomes a magnet for problems. Yeah, we struggled with the target, absolutely. But we have got some strong partners that we work with, and although we didn't achieve the 10 properties, we did bring in excess of 10 units back into use. So it was, I suppose, more around the wording of the target, which was the challenge, because we converted a couple of pubs, a couple of houses. So one house got turned into 2 units, which brought 2 lots of council tax, 2 lots of New Homes Bonus. And that was done over 3 properties. So 3 houses turned into 6 flats. But also it's a bit wider than just empty properties work. So we work closely with the homeless service and try to make sure that we are able to provide an offer for those people who are homeless or threatened with homeless. So not just for sleepers, but those people who potentially need supported accommodation. We try and work with supported accommodation providers and link them with empty properties, so they can either purchase and repair from the empty property owner, or that they can lease them from the empty property owner. And then that links in with that known housing need, say for single people who get local housing allowance, for instance, and then can't rent a full house on their own. So we tried to make sure that all the services that we do are complementary with other aspects of the council, because there are wider benefits than just, you know, the obvious, an empty property gets brought back into use. But if we can link it with the homeless service, as we did through the virus, then that proves to be, you know, there's that social value as well as that financial value.
But obviously the strategy formulation, and you're going to work that through. But are you in a position to give us any indication how you think at this stage the new strategy will differ from the old strategy? I mean, I do, you know, take the point that you're working through the strategy, but nevertheless, you know, from initial thoughts, could you give the committee any indication how you think the strategy may change, for instance?
Well, the tools haven't changed that they're available, but what has changed, I suppose, is the mindset as well. So we're working a lot closer with the corporate enforcement group, and we're starting to feel some benefits from that. So the feeling I get is that we will have more enforcement on the back of this strategy than we had in the previous strategy. So it feels like enforcement will probably be the route, because we've tried the carrot and we may have to use the stick for
or the carrot. So you think more of the stick and less of the carrot, maybe. But okay, thank you, Mr. Apps, for answering my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, Chris Fridlington would also like to add to that as well.
Thank you. Come on in, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, it segues into Carl App's final comments. Empty home strategy is absolutely essential if you're going to take enforcement against empty homes. You'll need that backup of a policy that explains our enforcement procedures and policies. Certainly, if you're going to go down the route of trying to take formal action through the courts, etc. The other way that I see it changing, of course, this is for further discussion, we're at a very early stage, is members will be aware of the proposals for a development company of some sort, which has its own proposals for taking on empty properties, buying them by the council, and then doing them up and either renting them or selling them as appropriate as market values allow. So, reflecting on Councillor Watson's comments, it might well change in a positive direction in terms of some of the council's investment strategy might be around taking some of these empty properties on ourselves, using our operatives out of housing to do them up, to get them market ready, perhaps to rent roll them for a little while if the market values aren't there in terms of sales. We don't know how the house market is going to respond to COVID. At the minute, there's a lot of pent-up demand. So there's a lot of good reasons to have an empty home strategy, and it's certainly worth the resource that Cole and his team is putting in. And of course, the empty property officer himself, Tom, I'm sure Cole wouldn't mind me saying, does an absolute excellent job in trying to get these things back into use. Because I'm sure as members will agree, and I'm certainly hearing in housing all the time when we was down there, empty properties as a source of ASB, antisocial behaviour. They do put a blight on the area. They do bring property prices down, and they really drag against all the things that we aspire to for our districts and for our communities. So I'd be fully supportive of Carl, and there's a bit of joint work in there as well with some of the proposals we have in terms of investments and growth as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Tom wants to come in.
Chair, Councillor Tom Munro and Councillor David Dixon would like to speak.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Much of what I wanted to say has been said by Chris Fridlington, but just on a sort of ward basis, both my own ward and our neighbouring ward, Elmton and Cresswell, which I'm quite sure that Councillor Clifton will concur with, have benefited from the work that's been carried out by the empty property officer and his department, in the sense that we have seen empty derelict properties brought back into use through the work of that service that otherwise become a complete and utter problem to our communities and areas for vandalism, etc., etc. And therefore, I would not in any way, shape or form support any move to remove the work of this particular policy and department, and I would support entirely its new proposed strategy going forward.
Thank you, Tom. Are we bringing David Dixon in next?
Yeah, Councillor David Dixon, Barbara Ward. Yeah, I'm glad that, that they're now talking about more enforcement. I think that's been lacking in the past, and I think there are just too many properties that, if you like, have slipped under the radar because I don't think there's, as he puts it, we need a bit more stick rather than carrot. So I'm in agreement with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, did you want to come in? Mike.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. I guess.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to agree with the comments made by Councillor Tom Munro, Chair. With the issue regarding not having a strategy, that's dealt with in the report, Chair, on page 3 at 4.1. That says it all. If you'd like to read it. Not implementing a joint property strategy will seriously impact upon the council's ability to reduce the number of long-term empty properties within the district and their ability to deal effectively with the problems associated with them. It's covered there, Chair, at 4.1. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, I'd like to come in and has everybody said what they wanted to say on this item?
That's everybody, Chair.
Yeah. Right. Well, I'd like to thank Carl for his report, but I would also like to add personally that I would never be ever upset at a Bolsover District Council officer ringing me up and wanting some information about my area or my part of the chair of Grove Scrutiny. So don't ever be frightened to ring us up and ask if you want anything, Carl.
No, we appreciate that, Chair. Thank you, and we certainly will take you up on the offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, and I'd like to thank you then at this point for your report, and we'll probably be moving on to the next one. Thank you.
We just need a mover and seconder for the recommendation, Chair.
Sorry, Joe.
I'll move the report with the recommendations within the report, Chair.
And Councillor John Wilson, I'll second it.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask for all in favour? Thank you.
That's everybody, Chair.
Thank you very much. Done that through now. Item 8. Is that correct, Joanne?
So we're still on this item, and we've got the housing strategy, and that's Carl again.
Carl, if you'd like to come in, please.
Yeah, thank you. So the timetable for the housing strategy is the same as the empty property strategy, so we'll be doing that work concurrently. Again, same approach as the last one. The reason we're sort of following this is we want to link it in with the council vision, which is enabling housing growth. Obviously, it's a slightly different baseline we're working from here, and we'll be taking evidence from various sources, including the County Council's older persons strategy, and they have released some other strategies as well. And we'll link it in with the Bolsover at Home schemes to see how we make sure it complements that. But it's slightly wider than just the council's housing growth aspirations in terms of their own development. It's also working with developers to make sure they build the right sort of properties in the right sort of place. Registered providers, again, around what housing need there is across the district, and ensuring that we sort of bring forward again the right properties in the right place, and that we make sure that housing is available to everybody within society, so they're not sort of picking the cream at the top and creating that gap between those at the bottom and those at the top. So it's a multi-tenure approach that we do, and try to, as I say, work with partners. Again, same timetable as previously suggested, and obviously we'll bring it to scrutiny throughout its lifetime. and its development to make sure that you're comfortable with the approach and the direction we're taking.
Right, well, thank you for this report. Can I have a move and a second for the recommendations at point 6? Can you hear me speaking?
Councillor Tom Munro, Chair.
And Councillor Wilson will second it. All in favour? Can we have a show of hands, please?
That's everybody, Chair.
Right, thank you for that. Now we're moving to item 8, I hope.
Item 9.
9?
Item 9.
What we're doing about the verbal report on the COVID response?
We've done that one.
We did that earlier.
We did that before Carl's report.
That's fine. Yeah, I just didn't want it missed in case I've missed anything. Right, so it's the work programme, pages 92 to 97.
Thank you, Chair. So members will be familiar with the standard work programme report. So following production of the original appendix, we've got a couple of additions to the October meeting, which will now involve further update on those 2 strategies that we've just discussed with Carl Apps. And that should be the point, assuming everything goes okay in terms of production of the strategies, where you'll get to see a more detailed draft that you can pass comment on. At this stage, I've tried to populate wherever I can the core performance items where you'd get those coming forward. In terms of the growth update, which you would usually have, that's another strategy that will be coming under review. So although there's likely to be a Q4 report for the year for 2019-20, what we may have is a period of time where we are just looking at the performance indicators for that report while the new strategy is developed, but I believe that is coming on stream during the year, so we'll programme that in as when that becomes available. At this stage, we've not programmed in scoping out a further review report because we're still in the process of completing last year's review, and obviously while we're sort of working remotely, we've not been able to meet in the way we normally would to move that area of work forward. So I will be in touch with councillors to book some informal dates in where we can meet as a committee to look at our work in more detail. I've had some suggested topics come forward, so I'll again, if anybody wants to submit any other topics, you're more than welcome to, and I will be presenting that back out to members in an informal committee once we've gotten a date arranged. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Tom, as Councillor Watson's indicated to speak, is time to bring him in, please.
Yeah, Councillor James Watson would like to speak, Chair.
Thank you. James.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. James Watson, Pinkston Ward. Yes, to that list, if it's not already included in that list, Ms Wilson, I would like to include a review of the letting of the Bolsover Homes contract, which, as you're aware, was let over the Easter period by delegated decision, and there was various frustration aspects for me, to review that. So I would like that, if it's not included on your list, to be included. I think.
Yeah, it's not been included as far as I'm aware today. It's not come up as a particular issue, so I can add that to the list for when we have that discussion.
It is particularly pertinent because it's a very large contract and was let under delegated powers. So I do think that it is very relevant for us to review that as early as possible.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. That to happen, yes. Have you got that sorted down, Joanne?
I've got that written down, Chair.
Yeah. We'll get that onto the next agenda, all being well. Joanne, where's next to?
Are there any other comments at all on the work programme that we've got so far? Councillor Kirkham?
Councillor Kirkham or Hucknall, just to clarify, this matches in with our suggested scrutiny topic for the next year, or is that something different?
So yes, we haven't picked the next topic that we're going to be looking at. So in terms, obviously, there's a couple of topics that you've suggested yourself. I've had some from some of the other councillors. Some link in with what this committee would look at. Some refer to an alternative committee. But I can add Councillor Watson's suggestion to the mix, and then I'll try and produce a more detailed report similar to what you've had in the past when we picked topics last year. Obviously, we're in a situation where we haven't had scrutiny conference, which we would normally have, where we would look at a whole range of topic suggestions in detail. So we're going to have to take a slightly different approach this year. But I will endeavour to put together a detailed report for you, and I'll probably contact Councillor Watson outside of the meeting for some additional detail just to help firm up that topic proposal.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, Chair, we just need to move the recommendation on page 93.
Yeah. Is everybody happy at that? Any more questions? Right. I'll propose. Would somebody like to propose the recommendations? And
Councillor Clough?
Yeah, Councillor Clough. And Derek Adams?
Councillor
Sarah Bourne, yeah. Sorry, Tom. Bow, you're happy with that? All in favour, can we have a show of hands, please?
That's everybody, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move on next to item 8, which is a verbal report on the COVID-19 response and recovery.
I think you've flipped your notes the wrong direction, Councillor Wilson. We're going to be moving on to item 10. So I just need you to read out the details in terms of moving into exempt. It's the last couple of pages of your notes.
I'm losing it on last one.
It starts right at the bottom of the
item 9.
It's just below that, right at the bottom of that page. Okay.
Yeah, I have turned it over. Sorry about that. We will now move to item 10, post-scrutiny monitoring report review of income generation. Discussion of this item will include decisions of sensitivity and exempt information. So I move that the public be excluded from the meeting during the discussion of the following items of business to avoid the disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of the Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Verification Order 2006. I need a member to propose this.
Chair?
No. Yes?
Without obviously disclosing, but could you point me to why this particular report is sensitive?
I can answer that, Chair.
Yes, please.
So the details in the actual paperwork that have been circulated to members, that isn't sensitive. However, there will be elements as part of the report that you'll get by way of a verbal update that will actually be exempt. So it's to do with the extra information that you're going to be given as part of the report.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
We did
I couldn't see from the face of the report what was particularly sensitive.
I appreciate that. It's to do with the additional detail that's going to be discussed as part of the report.
You know, after all, we are an open and transparent council, and we should be doing everything in public as possible.
I appreciate that. Unfortunately, on this occasion, there is some additional detail that's part of the exempt report that's going to executive at the end of the month.
But given that analysis, are you now going to unrestrict the report and publish it on the website?
In terms of the paper copy that's come out to members, I can talk to governance about how we could do an element of that. But in terms of the actual discussion that will take place, that would need to be.
No, I understand it's going into exempt because we're going to have a verbal update. But basically, that means that I struggled with the paper, and therefore, if it isn't exempt, it can be published.
I appreciate that.
Point.
I can talk to governance about how we can deal with that.
Okay.
Right. Do I need to move on a second, Joanne?
You do, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Well, I'll move it. Can I have a second, please?
Councillor Monroe, second.
Thank you, Tom, very much. All in favour? Thank you.
That's everybody apart from Councillor James.
Yeah, I'll abstain and have my abstention recorded, please, in the minutes.
Thank you. Joanne, when you're ready, you want to come in?
Can we just have confirmation the live